The man at the window. It was a regular night, just after 9 p.m. I was 14 years old, babysitting my little cousin at his house. My mom and aunt were out shopping, and my dad and uncle were at the movies. Everything seemed normal, but something didn't feel right. I couldn't figure out why, but I had a strange, uneasy feeling. My cousin and I were sitting on the couch, watching TV, but I couldn't focus on the show. The feeling that something was wrong just wouldn't go away. I tried to ignore it, thinking it was just my imagination, but it kept getting stronger. I decided to get up and check the house. Maybe if I locked the back door, I'd feel better. As I walked through the kitchen, I felt a chill run down my spine. Something was definitely wrong. When I turned to go back to the living room, I saw him. A man was standing outside the window, staring at my cousin. He looked terrible, dirty, with messy hair and torn clothes. His eyes were empty, like he wasn't really there. My heart started to race, but I knew I couldn't let my cousin see how scared I was. I pretended I didn't notice the man and walked back into the living room. "Hey, we should go upstairs," I told my cousin, trying to sound calm. "Mom and Dad will be home soon, and they wouldn't want you to stay up too late." My cousin agreed, not realizing anything was wrong. I took him upstairs and put him to bed. Then, I went back downstairs, grabbed a meat tenderizer from the kitchen, and checked the window. The man was gone. Panic started to set in. I ran to the front door and made sure it was locked. Both the deadbolt and the knob were secure. I hurried back upstairs, holding the meat tenderizer tightly, and sat down in front of my cousin's bedroom door. "What are you doing?" my cousin asked, peeking out from under his covers. "Don't worry about it," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Just stay under the covers and be quiet." I pulled out my phone and called the police, explaining what was happening. They said they would be there in about 30 minutes. I also called my dad and uncle, but they were at least 45 minutes away. All I could do was wait. Suddenly, I heard a window shatter downstairs, followed by the sound of heavy boots walking through the house. My heart was pounding in my chest. I told my cousin to stay calm, to hide under the covers and not make a sound. The man was inside the house. I listened as he walked around downstairs, opening doors and searching for something, or someone. His footsteps were getting closer, and I heard him start to come up the stairs. My heart felt like it was going to burst out of my chest. He opened the door to my aunt and uncle's room, then the bathroom. He was so close, just a few feet from where I was sitting. I could hear my cousin's breathing, shaky and scared. But then, the footsteps went back downstairs. I heard the basement door creak open, and for a moment, I thought he was leaving. But he wasn't. Finally, after what felt like forever, the sound of police sirens filled the air. They burst through the front door and found the man in the basement, curled up in a corner, talking to himself. He had escaped from a mental hospital 1 province away and had somehow ended up at my cousin's house. The police took him away, but I couldn't stop thinking about that night. The image of the man's face at the window, the sound of his boots on the floor, and the fear that he was so close stayed with me. It was a night I'll never forget, the night the man at the window came looking for something much more terrifying than just a place to hide.
The Watcher in the Woods. This happened a year ago when my parents and sister went to an event in Austria. They told me I'd be alone in the house for 3 days. I was excited because I'd never been home alone for that long before. The idea of having the house all to myself sounded like fun. The first night went by without any problems. I enjoyed the quiet and freedom. But in the middle of the night, I woke up with a strange feeling, like someone was watching me. My heart raced, but I told myself it was just in my head and went back to sleep. The next day, the feeling didn't go away. Even during the day, I felt like someone was watching me. It was unsettling, so I walked around the house, checking everything, but I didn't find anyone. I tried to ignore it and spent the rest of the day watching movies. On the last night, I woke up again, this time between 2 and 3 a.m. The feeling of being watched was stronger than ever. Then, I heard footsteps outside the house, slow and steady, like someone was walking around the house. I felt scared, but I had to see what was happening. I put on my shoes, grabbed a flashlight, and went outside. The night was cold and quiet. I walked around the house, shining the flashlight, but I didn't see anything. Just when I thought I was being paranoid, I heard a noise from the woods, which were a little distance from my house. Despite feeling uneasy, I decided to check it out. As I walked toward the woods, the feeling of being watched grew stronger. I stopped and looked behind me, but there was nothing there, just trees and shadows. I felt a chill but kept going. A few minutes later, I heard a scream, a loud, terrifying scream that echoed through the night. Fear gripped me, and I ran back to the house as fast as I could. When I got inside, I locked the door and pulled the curtains shut. My heart was pounding, and I tried to calm down. Then, I peeked through a gap in the curtains, and I froze. There was someone standing outside, staring right at me. His face was hidden in the shadows, but I could see his eyes, dark and unblinking. The moment he saw me looking, he turned and ran back into the woods. When my parents and sister returned, I didn't tell them what happened. I didn't want to worry them, and I wasn't sure if they'd believe me. To this day, they still don't know.
The uninvited guest. The other night, I was asleep in my apartment when I heard the front door open. I didn't worry about it, because I thought it was my sister. She has a key to my place, and sometimes comes over to crash on my couch after a fight with her boyfriend. It happens a lot, so I didn't think twice. I heard someone moving around in the apartment, footsteps and the sound of things being moved. I assumed she was just getting settled or making herself something to eat. Feeling sleepy, I didn't get up to check. I just went back to sleep, thinking everything was normal. The next morning, my alarm went off at 5 a.m. for work. I got up, expecting to see her asleep on the couch, but the living room was empty. The blanket she usually uses was still folded, and there was no sign she had been there at all. It seemed odd, considering it was so early. I sent her a quick text, asking if she had come over last night. A few minutes later, she replied, "No, I didn't come over." My heart sank. I quickly got up and checked the apartment. The front door was locked, just like I had left it. But then, I remembered the door to the outside, the one I rarely use. When I checked it, it was unlocked. A chill ran down my spine. I knew I had locked that door before going to bed. I started looking around the apartment to see if anything was missing, but everything was still there. My laptop, my TV, even the old gaming console I barely use. Nothing seemed out of place or stolen. That's when it hit me. Someone had been in my apartment while I was asleep. They didn't take anything, and they didn't wake me up. They just moved around quietly in the dark and left, leaving the door unlocked behind them. I couldn't stop thinking about it. The idea that someone had been in my home, so close to me while I was completely unaware, made me feel uneasy. I didn't sleep well the next night, or the night after that. I still don't know who came into my apartment that night, or what they wanted. I've changed the locks and started double-checking everything before bed. But every time I close my eyes, I can't help but wonder if they'll come back, and what they might do if they do.
The voice in the hallway. It was a cold and dreary weekend, and I was home alone. My parents were out for the day, and the house was unusually quiet. The sky was overcast, casting a dim light through the few windows in our small house. The stillness was comforting, and I decided to use the time to do some homework. I sat down at the kitchen table, spreading out my books and notebook. The house was small, and to my left was a short hallway. On the right side of the hallway were the bathroom and my bedroom. On the left were my parents' bedroom and my brother's room. My brother, who was much older, was at work, so it was just me in the house. The silence felt peaceful as I focused on my homework. Everything was going fine until I suddenly heard a woman's voice from the end of the hallway. She said my name, my childhood nickname, clear as day. My blood ran cold. I froze in place, my heart pounding in my chest. Slowly, I turned my head to look down the hallway, but there was nothing there. Just the empty hallway, dimly lit by the overcast light. For a moment, I couldn't move. The voice had sounded so real, but there was no one else in the house. Fear took over, and I knew I had to get out. My jacket was nearby, and in one quick motion, I closed my books, grabbed my jacket, and headed straight for the back door, tears welling up in my eyes as I ran. I went to the garage out back and sat on my dad's red lawnmower, where I could see the back door of the house. I waited there, shivering with fear, watching to see if anyone came out. But deep down, I knew there was no one else in the house. My family had been gone all day. I stayed in the garage for what felt like hours until my parents finally came home. As soon as they pulled into the driveway, I ran to meet them and told them what had happened. They checked the house but found nothing and said it was just my imagination. Now, years later, I live in that same house with my mom, helping her out since she's gotten older. My dad passed away several years ago, but my mom sometimes says she hears him calling her name from the living room. She'll go in to ask what he wants, only to find no one there. She says it's just her imagination, but after what I heard that day, I can't help but wonder if there's more to it. I'll never forget the fear I felt when that voice called my name.